Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. I'm not late. I am 5 seconds early. I hit start and it was still 12:29 on my clock. And as soon as it started, it rolled over. I am 5 seconds early. How are you all, my fellow cryptopians out there in crypto land? Time for a quick midday, afternoon day, whatever day it is in your time. If you're at work, thank you for being here. If you are eating dinner, even more to you, more power to you. But let's do some chart reviewing. Let's do some news updates, and we'll make it quick here. So my goal is 30 to 40 minutes. Let's do it. All right, so first off, Bitcoin, and then I will get through the other charts after I do a little quick news segment. But Bitcoin, finally, maybe pausing a little bit. If you guys didn't catch it, I posted a video out earlier today talking about a potential pullback, some of the levels that I was watching here. And so first, the positive. There, here on the 4-hour charts, we're still very much above this 10 EMA that's rising on the 4-hour charts. So the trend is still favorable. We had a little bit of a shakeout attempt earlier. It's still in progress. This current 4-hour bar still has about 30 minutes left. So by the end of the live stream, we'll see how this finishes up. But, you know, seeing some pretty good support. A lot of volume came in here on the sell side. And right now it's trying to bounce a little bit off the moving average. If we go to the 1 hour, and I'll switch to some other exchanges here in a sec, but looking at GDAX, you can see the volume was pretty heavy on some of that selling action here that happened a couple of hours ago. So if you look at this bar and the bar afterwards, which turned out to be a pretty good strong support bar, were some of the biggest selling that we have seen here in recent times. Now, it was struggling a little bit here over the last 24 hours, trying to pause around that 9,000 range. Looked like we were going to break out. A little bit of a fake out was followed by some pretty decent selling. I am a proponent of volume, as you guys know. I use it as one of my tools in terms of trading, and big volume reversal near the top after a failed breakout is usually a sell signal for me. And so I started to take some profits, started to move into cash, tightened up the stops, closed out some of my other positions, and we're going to see. I will wait this out. It's kind of in no man's land now, right? It's bouncing a little bit here. Let's see if it can get above this moving average. But you can see here very clearly on the hourlies, the RSI is starting to wane. The momentum has shifted a little bit. Does it have to crash from here? Of course not. It could just sit tight and do another one of these here where maybe it just pauses and kind of meanders in a little bit of a range. The near-term support is around that $8,600 mark, which was the little bit of a ascending base that was set up here before the breakout yesterday. We rounded out a little bit here. So we'll see anywhere between here and 86 would be pretty nice to see it hold. If it breaks below that, then around 83 to 8,400. So this is kind of my target zone right now. Very near term, right? This is on the hourlies. And so I'm kind of looking at this little zone in here as my target for a potential pullback place to hold. That would be nice to see, and then some rally from there on the 4-hour chart. That clearly would bring it below the 10 EMA, but it would kind of correlate with this here on the daily. That would certainly bring it below the moving average, but then we maybe would set up a nice higher low, and that could lend itself well if we see some strong buy volume come in on a bounce from there. So near term, those are the levels I'm looking at. Obviously, if it breaks above and starts to close above this $9,100 mark, then that's just going to negate any of this kind of near-term selling pressure that we saw. And we'll go from there. Above 9,100, the level I was watching is this 93. That's my very near-term resistance. And then above that, stronger resistance around between 96 and 9,800. It's more of a zone. And this was the target that I was calculating. Oops, let me go to the other. This was a target that I was calculating when we broke from that falling wedge pattern and bounced off the lows. So I mentioned it in a couple of videos and live streams earlier this week as far as potential measured moves to the upside, using both as double bottom, using the falling wedge, using a Fibonacci retracement bounce, and everything was kind of pointing to this zone here between 96 and 9,900 or so. And so that's still my potential near-term target. We could see a little bit of a pullback first, and then maybe we head there. And so you got to keep that in play, especially if we bounce and we get above that 9,100 level here in the near term. Then that's the next two levels to watch, 9,300, and then above that's this little bit of a zone here. So not too bad. We've just had a very nice rally off the lows. This current bar, this current daily bar has about 4 hours left to go. It's a little bit of a tight action. You can see the volume is declining as each day progresses. We've had now 4 green days in a row. And typically off of a bounce, you're going to need at least one red day, even if it's a small flat red day. You're going to need a red day in there to, to kind of pause things a little bit, and then we'd go from there if it's going to continue higher. So those are my thoughts on the BTC here near term. Those are the levels to be watching here in the next few hours. Let's get to a couple of news items, and then I will be covering the charts. I've been reading some of the comments here. I jumped on here a little bit early, and so I'll try to answer some of these questions. The Death Cross, I will be talking about that slightly. I'm actually going to work on a video here this afternoon that I'll be posting that goes very in-depth on the Death Cross. But the short summary of it is I don't care. That's basically the end of it. It's not going to influence my trading and investing one bit. And I will go into that in my video as to why it will not. So that's it. ICX, crazy move up, listed on BitHum. We'll go into that. That's a great move. And I'm a big fan of ICX in the long term. I think it's going to be one of the big winners in 2018. So it's nice to see that. Would I buy it now? I would wait personally if you are not in it now. Could it go higher? Yeah. Anything on BitHum now, man, that's like the rocket ship. They take them off, man. But you know me, especially in this market, I tend to be a little bit more risk averse. I'm going to wait for a pullback or something like that if I want to add to the ICX. Let's see here. There was a question on TA. Let me go to my other screen. I missed the comment. Okay, we'll get back to that here. So let's go through some of these items here. So first off, we all know Icon surges. It's still surging. We go to the ICX chart here. So here's the daily chart of Icon. Beautiful, strong, rocket ship green candle. You gotta love it. This has been strong here as of late. Anyway, it was here for a couple of days, very strong. I actually jumped on ICX for a trade, not long term. That's a different story, but for a trade here, and wrote it up. And then I took profits going into strength, and then the news came, and I missed the back half of that. But hey, that's okay. Still did pretty good on that in a very short period of time. But ICX is looking pretty good. It's definitely in the overbought range now. RSI is over 83, very extended from all short-term moving averages. And so I would just be a little cautious about FOMOing into something like this at these levels, even on the daily chart. I mean, it's had a good run. It's kind of running into the first big resistance level now. And so I would at least be looking for a pause on something like this. But the thing with these, it's kind of like now that it's taken off, the momentum's in its favor, and it could just keep going before it decides to take a break here. As we've seen, it's been in this overbought category for some time, but it's still going. So the risk is higher, but let's see if we can get a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a pullback first. So ICX, that was the reason they're going to be doing a giveaway to celebrate the launch of BitHum Pro. It's going to be in the form of an airdrop for account holders. And so that's a good news. That's a big win for that specific project. But ICX, good stuff there. Next item on the list here. Oh, I just closed it out. Anyway, it was Twitter, Jack Dorsey. You guys remember I talked about this on my last live stream saying how bullish he is generally on Bitcoin, and it'd be interesting to see if Twitter decides to ban crypto ads. They did decide to ban crypto ads. But then here Jack Dorsey comes out and says that he is bullish on Bitcoin. It's going to replace the dollar in 10 years. It's going to be the single currency of the internet and of the world. And so I agree and I disagree. In his statement, he said the world will have one currency in the future. Yeah, I probably agree with that. It's not going to be Bitcoin, I don't think. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going to be around a long time, but is it going to be Bitcoin the one currency, or government's going to adopt it and all that? I doubt it. I really do. But he's bullish on Bitcoin, and that's good news, and so am I. And we'll see. South Korea lifts ban on ICOs with new regulation, or plans to lift the ban. This is good news because this was one of the big FUD items, kind of early on and later, early last year too, late last year, in terms of kind of squashing things. And ICOs have just been in the news so much lately with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, with specific states cracking down, with major social media outlets cracking down. And so, this is kind of nice, positive news that instead of throwing a wet blanket on it and saying, you're banned, ICOs are banned, right? Now they're at least being logical and saying, okay, let's explore options on how to regulate this and come up with something that's a little bit more sensible, which is the right way to do it. So that's the news on the ICOs, but pretty interesting article here just because it was an impact last year. And if they start to change the tone, then maybe other countries will follow suit. And perhaps we've bottomed out in terms of the bearishness on ICOs and some of the news there, and things start to look a little bit more positive. Another one here. So here's a Jack Dorsey world single currency thing here. The other one I wanted to mention here is the Snowden leaked an article, and I tweeted this out yesterday, but he was talking about how the NSA is tracking Bitcoin users and just some of the methods that they use to backtrack wallets addresses to specific people using, it gets very technical, just kind of triangulating different pieces of information, IP addresses, all that fun stuff. But is it any surprise? I mean, it really isn't. I mean, I don't know where you guys sit in terms of the conspiracy theories around some of the data tracking and all that, but if you can imagine it, it's probably happening, and they're collecting more information than will ever be made public. And so it doesn't really surprise me that, okay, Bitcoin is being tracked. Your tax dollars hard at work there. But I thought that was an interesting article. So Tom Lee is at it again. I mentioned in my last news live stream that he was projecting some big numbers by 2020. He's been a long-term bull on Bitcoin. And now he says that the altcoin bear market is over. That's it, guys. The bear is officially been slain. Tom Lee says it's over. But there are some caveats here. So Tom Lee, he's also the one that was talking about the Bitcoin Misery Index, if you haven't seen that. But in his statements, he says that, it's increasingly investors are comfortable that Bitcoin is likely to be viewed as a commodity. I think I would agree with that, but that's still up for debate. Regulations and all that fun stuff. He said he'd still be buying Bitcoin, and he believes the alt bear market is over. However, while the bulk of the decline is behind us, that doesn't necessarily mean that the new bull is necessarily underway. And he talks about this purgatory period. And I've mentioned that a little bit, where we don't V-bottom generally. We go down and then we kind of build an accumulation zone, maybe sideways action, and then it goes up from there. And I would agree. But he says, given this expected purgatory, we are sticking with the large caps. Now, Tom Lee is way smarter than I am, and he is way more informed and probably way more connected to financial experts. But I would disagree with this statement because I believe the middle tier to smaller caps are going to give you the bigger bang for your buck if the altcoin bear is over. The big caps may be safer and they may hold their value, but I think the mid caps, smaller caps are going to be seeing a bigger bounce, and we're already seeing that. And so good news, but we'll see. At least we're getting some positive stuff. Last week it was all FUD. Now we're seeing some good news. So, and last but not least, someone was talking about this in the comments earlier. IBM's tiniest computer, smaller than a grain of salt. And in prior days, I used to work for in different industries, mostly space, but I also did some Internet of Things stuff, some IoT. So I studied this space quite a bit, and it's interesting to see this start coming around, because one of the big things with IoT, right, is I was never a big fan of RFID and kind of that scanning. It's just very inefficient, and it just was not useful. And there's some names like Wabi and stuff like that that are trying to implement RFID and scanning and implementing that on the blockchain for supply chain purposes and all that good stuff. But the future of Internet of Things, the future of technology is this right here. It's ubiquitous computing. It's computing power at the edge. It's computing down to basically everything. So instead of having a dumb RFID tag or some tracker, you literally have computing power at the edge, and then you can do so much more with the data collected. You can analyze real time. You can do a lot more stuff there, and so it's pretty cool to see this. And we're going to see more of this. And this is a prototype, so it's still a ways out. But how will that impact blockchain? How will that impact Wabi and Walton and some of these other projects is very interesting, is yet to be seen. But technology, gotta love it. Let's get to the charts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Let me let me take a swig here. And don't worry, it's not spiked. I'm going to stay clear and calm. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for subscribing, for liking. If you haven't already, go to nodeinvestor.com. Follow me on Twitter at nodeinvestor. And most of you guys probably already are, because you are here. So let's get to the charts here. I'm going to cover some of the biggies first here. This is on Bitstamp, so it makes it easy for me to just cycle through some of the big names. BTC, we've already covered. If you missed the first 5-10 minutes, check that out. I kind of cover some of the questions here on prices to look for the downside, the upside. Short story is, I'm a little bit cautious here. We saw some high volume selling, a little bit of a reversal. I think the tone has changed. I think we're going to see a little bit more pullback. But if it closes above 9,100 with some strong buy volume, I will quickly change tone. But that's the way it is right now, and I'm projecting a little bit more pullback. Ethereum, ETH was almost, I almost FOMO'd into some ETH on a trade yesterday. I decided not to, and I went to sleep instead. But, oh man, it was, here's a couple things I was watching. So ETH was testing that 560 area. Let me highlight this a little bit stronger for you guys. That was the area to be watching, a potential breakout there. We saw it start edging out. It was looking really good, starting to move higher. I think this is a good secondary entry point, in my opinion, now that it's kind of back tested and holding that breakout point. But that's the first test. And then, it hit basically resistance here on that little breakout, that bounce. And so right now it's kind of meandering, sitting there. It's not super strong, right? It's been the laggard, not strong like LTC versus Bitcoin and some of these other names. But had a pretty decent move out above. Now it's kind of living above that little bit of a resistance point. And so if it can hold and start moving higher, getting back above 570, 575 would be a little bit more convincing. And then maybe ETH starts playing a little bit of catch up. You can see here on the BTC chart, it's been the laggard, definitely not the place to be compared to other alts. This one has just been really back, really lagging versus BTC. Not a pretty chart all around. I mean, just look at the daily. It's just still very much in a bear trend, but it's just very oversold. So I'm thinking maybe we get a little bit of a bounce. Maybe it tries to play catch up a little bit, but not there yet. Litecoin, a little bit stronger. At least it's holding par, overall with BTC. Slightly outperformed in the last couple of days. Going to the 4-hour chart, you can see it's trying to put a low in here versus BTC. Starting to look like it wants to turn the corner a little bit here. On the USD chart, a lot stronger, but this chart basically looks like Bitcoin's chart, and that's because it's holding par pretty well. So you're going to follow Bitcoin here on Litecoin for the most part. When Bitcoin pauses, this one's been pausing. When Bitcoin breaks out, this one's been breaking out. And so that's it right now. The resistance level that it ran up to is right here around that 175 up to about 177. If it can clear that, then we could probably see some pretty good momentum on Litecoin. All around, though, the bottoming action in the big picture is very positive, right? It's the type of action you want to see at a low after a big pullback. You had this low, and you're kind of seeing some support build. Now we're making higher lows. Looks like it's turning the corner, breaking this, very near term downtrend that it was in here. So all around, it's looking a little bit more positive, but we got to see. Take it one day at a time. We've had a very nice bounce off the lows. It's been a very good tradable rally. There's been some good alts, but now we're looking like we want to pause a little bit. So Ripple, I know you guys all just love this darling Ripple, so I am not going to talk about it. Ripple, Ripple. It's not very strong. That's all I got to say. Bitcoin Cash. Let's do the B Cash. All right. Let's see here. The B Cash. It's trying to bottom out here a little bit. Maybe finally. Trying to put a little bit of a low versus BTC here. Let me go to the 4-hour chart. Looking at this chart here, I mean, you can make a case for a pretty good double bottom here on Bitcoin Cash with this low here. And, very similar story here, kind of rising, still holding this trend. But here near term, right, it's going to follow BTC a little bit if Bitcoin tries to pull in a little bit versus Bitcoin. You can see that it's had its good days, but for the most part, it's kind of in this range. So it's, it keeps looking like it wants to start going, and then it just pulls back, and then it looks like it wants to start going, and then pulls back. And so it's been very choppy versus Bitcoin, just, with the exception of a few short periods of time, it doesn't outperform for the whole lot. So it's just kind of building a big base versus BTC. The level I'd really be watching here, if it's going to truly turn the corner, is kind of way up here. But this broader base that it's kind of living below, if it breaks above this, that's that 12% valuation versus Bitcoin, maybe a little higher, 12.4, 12.3. If it gets above that, then maybe we can say, hey, this is really turning the corner. Anywhere between now and there, it's just kind of choppy and near term, very short term. So you can see that's really the base to be watching. And above that, maybe we start to get some big outperformance on that one. Let me go to the coin market cap here real quick. So you can see here, Bitcoin, basically 9K, flat for the day for the most part. Some other names we want to look at here. You guys mentioned Cardano. We'll definitely look at that. EOS, NEO. I'll pick through a few of these. We already talked Icon. And I'll look through a couple more. Nano had a pretty big pop yesterday. And so we'll go through a few of these here. So let's get to it. There's ICX. Beautiful ICX. So Cardano. Looking at this guy, man, what a strong move this has been. Very nice off of the lows. At this point, it's up about 40%. It was up a little bit higher. Had a little bit of a shakeout move earlier. Feels like it finally wants to pause. I did place a trade on this here off the lows. And full disclosure, maybe I'm a little too early, but I took some profits today. And that's on the trading account, guys. And what I was watching here is this here. So there was two levels I was watching here on my trading for this particular name. And so I entered, in and around here. And the zone that I was looking for as far as my profit taking zone was this little window right there. And I thought, that's going to be the first key resistance. And that may not be a bad place to either tighten the stop or lock in some gains. And we basically have rallied right into that resistance. I'm hoping we see a little bit of a pause, pullback, and then it could really set up for some momentum to break through that resistance. So maybe we kind of just build a flag or a handle in and around this level. That'd be ideal. And then above that, you can get a pretty decent move on this name because, it sets up a nice little handle or even a right shoulder. You'd have a big, huge inverted head and shoulder pattern from which this thing could really take off. On the daily chart, you can see just how strong this has been. Let me go here. Sorry, this is really bugging me out. Here we go. I'm going to move this off. Look at the volume off the lows. This was crazy oversold, long-term downtrend, fully retraced a lot of the move. And the volume that just came in off the lows, very strong, very good. Certainly is changing the picture for the long term. It's really trying to break that downtrend. And so that's very positive all around from a long-term perspective. Generally, I'm talking shorter-term trading and stuff like that. But with a lot of these alts, just like Tom Lee said, the bear market may be over. And you got to start paying attention to some of the major trend changes on the long term. So like we saw in ICX, it's putting in a very strong low, tons of volume at the low, really breaking the trend. And so you want to start paying attention to that over the coming weeks. Do we start to see some of this action where it starts to really build higher lows? It starts to go the other direction. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to for some of these names longer term. But I still like Cardano. It's still a kind of a top name in my list right now. And I think it still looks good longer term, especially at these levels. I still like it from a valuation perspective. It's still up there, but it's come off quite a bit. It's still $5.76 billion. But this is far off the highs that it was earlier. It was definitely way overvalued earlier this year. But longer term, I think they're looking pretty good. So EOS. Another one that's turning the corner here at the lows. Finally, was one of the big movers. Gave you a nice little pause, secondary entry. And here we go, breaking again and moving higher on this daily chart. The last little base that it was forming here that it broke down from, that's going to be the first resistance point to watch near term, and we're almost there. And so you're seeing a very strong move, though. Look at the volume coming off of this. This was a very nice secondary base here with the trend is really what you want to watch on these type of flag setups. So when it breaks that downtrend, which is just did, right, that's basically your signal that it's going to go higher. And you can see on the hourlies here in the last 2 hours, had a very nice break of that trend. How's it look on the USD pair? Real similar chart, nice ascending flag on that USD pair. And you can see here in the last 2 hours, breaking that. And so looking very positive, in my opinion. Looks like it wants to go another leg up, probably viable here on any dips. But watch that near-term resistance a few percent higher. That's going to be the first test here going forward. EOS looking pretty good. I do hold some EOS in the long-term portfolio, and regardless, there's a lot of controversy there. There's some potential they're a scam. I get all that. It's not a huge percentage, but I do have some exposure to EOS. All right, let's go through some more. Let's get some 100 likes. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome, guys. All right, so let's go. We did Cardano, EOS, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. Let's do NEO, and then I'll start skipping through for the sake of time, because I promised you guys this would be a shorter, quick update live stream. So let's do a couple more here. NEO, come on, NEO. So NEO had a very nice rally off the lows, but look at where it failed, right below that 10 EMA. Unfortunately, the picture for NEO has been a little bit more bearish than some of these here near term. I'm thinking it finally hit a low on the USD pair. NEO was sub $50, very 105. Man, you guys are amazing. Thank you, guys. NEO hit sub 50 and just was crazy and had a good bounce. Here we are pulling in a little bit. I still think that was the low, but let's take a look at the USD pair here. You can see it also is bouncing right into that 10 EMA. Probably wants to go flat here a little bit, go sideways, kind of build a little bit of a base. But NEO is looking pretty good. It's kind of putting maybe a secondary entry point, a little bit of a bear flag here. The volume on this little dip here is a little higher, though, so that's keeping me cautious, right? Those high volume reversals, you got to pay attention to that. And really, I'm just going to wait until it wants to start breaking that trend to the upside, and then this may get going again. So, but I still like NEO long term. Just it's just had a big dip here, and man, $48 NEO. Anybody buy $48 NEO? Did anybody buy the blood on Saturday? And it was looking really scary. All right, let's do Tron because Tron had a pretty strong move here in the last couple of days, finally giving us a little bit of a pause. And so Tron, I did do a quick trade on this. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer trade. I may hop on, but when Tron just gives you that much that fast, you get in and you get out, in my opinion. And so Tron was giving us a pretty nice little setup here, but you can see had this big move up yesterday, and look at the big volume reversal near the top, kind of a big breakout, but then it pulls right back in. A lot of profit taking showed up there, and now it's pausing, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it just crashes, but you got to pay attention to those reversals. And here it is, just kind of sitting tight, still letting the moving average catch up, and so far it's holding up, so not too bad. You zoom out a little bit here, and you can see Tron has had these in the past where they kind of give you these big fake out pumps, which is why I just tend to take the profits on this one quickly. But in the big picture, it does feel like it wants to maybe turn the corner finally. Looking at the base here of support on Tron, you can see the last big base was right here. It broke out right here. And that's where we found our most recent low, and the volume really started to come in. So maybe this one's finally done. Maybe. But it's certainly looking a lot more positive now. And I'm with Tom Lee thinking, that bear market is probably over, if not pretty close for the alts. I think we're going to at least see a little bit of a counter trend rally, even if it's not back to the old highs, but a little bit of a counter trend rally for the near term. So we'll see about that. But Tron setting up potentially, I think, for a secondary entry for another move higher here. Let's see, NAM. NAM was seeing some big volume. Somebody alerted that to me earlier on NAM. So thank you for pointing that out to me. But man, NAM had a very big volume move at the lows, and you got to pay attention to that. Somebody wants NAM. Look at that big volume spike here on that single hour bar. It's pulling right back in, but there was certainly a big accumulation of some NAM right at the lows. We did have that big rally a couple weeks ago or a week ago, following some positive news about them and the exchange and all that, but just gave it all right back up. But here it is, right at the lows again, trying to hold this support, and we're seeing some pretty big volume come in. So not necessarily a buy signal in and of itself, but you got to pay attention to this one now, I think. So it's looking pretty interesting on this. But here, this bar is red. It's just you got to dig beneath the surface. But this is the level to be watching here near term. If this holds and we start to move higher again, then maybe that big volume buy was an early signal that you're going to see some more upside action. All right, let me go through some of the comments here. I'm reading them, corner of my eye here as you guys are punching them in here as I talk. But let me see here. BTC, is it bullish or bearish? Yes. It just depends on the time frame. On the daily chart, it's looking positive, but it certainly hasn't confirmed. In the shorter term time frame, I've been riding the wave, but I was taking some profits here today as it was pulling in, so we'll see. It needs to get above 9,100. Let's see here. We did Litecoin. Yeah, let's do mod. We haven't done mod, and I know that had a crazy pop. I just noticed it right before the stream, so I haven't had any chance to do any investigation. Is there news? Is there anything that's driving that? I don't know, but man, what's up with that? I mean, I know it's a small cap name, and they tend to move these pretty quick if a lot of volume comes in. But look at that, it went up 40% in a single bar there. And if you dig in beneath, that turned out to be a red bar. So there was a lot of sellers, a lot of profit taking there, but kind of weird. Like, what? I don't know what drove that. I don't know if that was a news report or anything. But mod, if you go to the big picture though, the daily chart, it's looking pretty good. I mean, it's had some of these in the past, so caution is advised. You saw it happen here. Right, that big wick there. You're seeing another one here, but this one looks a lot better, especially coming off the lows. Kind of makes more sense to see something like that at the lows, maybe some accumulations happening. So got to keep an eye on mod. Smaller cap name. What are they at now? It's still a project I like. I think the industry that they're trying to tackle. This solution makes some sense, but promise it wasn't me that fat fingered this guy and just bought a ton of mod. $45 million really has come off the highs quite a bit. All right, let's do a few more here. I'm gonna have to cherry pick some names here from you guys. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to cover them all. We see Verge. I think covered that one in the last one. Didn't get to QuantStamp in the last one, so let's do that one here. So QSP has been in a pretty rough downtrend here, no doubt. And in this most recent rally off the lows from the alts, I mean, it's done okay, right? It's not, compared to the chart. Sorry, my thing's here. Here we go. It's up 27% at the highs, and at this point, it's pulled back a little bit, only up 20% now. And like some of the other action I'm seeing here, you got to be careful with that high volume reversal off the top. That usually is a little bit of a flag to me when it's the biggest volume bar in the last several bars. I pay attention to that kind of action there, excuse me. So big picture, though, it's still not bullish yet, right? It's maybe finding a low here. I do like this big wick here at the lows with some pretty decent volume there. That's positive that maybe that was the low. It was kind of the lowest point in the chart, biggest volume here in recent history. And so maybe it's found a low. But as far as confirmation to the upside, you really got to get above this moving average first and start taking out some of these key resistance zones. So that one there, and then that one way up here would be the next target to watch for this one. Let's see. We did Tron and we did Neo. Nano, that's one I wanted to cover. Nano. So looking at Nano, this one just had a crazy move yesterday. It was looking really nice. So look at this chart here. This is the 1 hour of Nano. As far as trading goes, right, this makes it a good setup. You see your overhead resistance is pretty clear. You can kind of set your stops, below the range or even tighter here near the middle of the range. And I didn't catch this one, but sure enough, it had a big volume pop to the upside, looking very nice, even clearing this prior resistance here. Tried to rally a little bit, but then just kind of fizzled out. And you can see here, and I don't like to see that, right? When you see these big breakout attempts and then they just don't stick, usually not positive. But the good news is it's still holding this lower support area right around that, kind of 93.4K, 94K or so. That's the level you want to see it hold, and ideally a little bit higher than that. So we'll see if we can bounce and get some more upside strength. But for now, a little bit of a failed breakout attempt on Nano in the very short term. Big picture, unfortunately, still bearish, kind of below the moving average. Still, this trend is still down. And so if it breaks below this on a closing basis, especially, that's not going to be good news. So I'd be cautious with Nano here. All right. Looking through the notes here, a couple more. With how much time we've got? Almost 40 minutes in. So I'm going to have to cut it short here. Appreciate everybody joining. I'm going to try to do more of these quick midday, late evening, morning updates, whatever time works. I try to mix it up too, because I know a lot of you guys are different time zones, other sides of the world for me. And, gotta keep it balanced. I've been known to do some 2 a.m. live streams, as you guys know. So, ARK. Yeah, ARK is one I'm watching here too as a potential. Maybe it's found a low, but it hasn't quite rallied in terms of breaking the downtrend, right? It hasn't rallied enough to do that. Certainly not to the level that we've seen in some of the other names like, Quantum or Icon or some of those other names. But you got to pay attention here. It did have some pretty good volume off the lows. Looking at the 4-hour versus BTC, you can see the trend looks much stronger here. The volume patterns are a little healthier. You can see the big green bars as it's trying to come off. Even the low had a big green bar. So that looks good, but it's still below this big downtrend, right? So until it takes that out, at this point, this is just a bounce and nothing more. And you can see that it really just bounced into this resistance, right? This was prior support. You know, you can see here, touch this place. You know, this was a pretty good base. This was a base. It broke down, just bounced right into that point, and that's it. Got to get above both. And you got a little bit of a confluence of two resistance points here. You've got this horizontal price resistance. You got the trend line resistance. So that's the zone that it really needs to get above. Getting above this zone here would really start to turn the picture around. All right, we did NEO, we did Tron. I know you guys are asking for those. I apologize, but we already did those. Let's see here. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to see here. I probably won't go too in depth. I'm just going to cycle through some of these other names you guys are dropping out there. There's Walton. Not looking too good right now. Let me see Aeon. That's a name I like. Let's see how that one looks. Much stronger, putting in a pretty good low. Looking very good here in the very near term. So very positive. Good looking chart here. Got to make a note of that one. Some other names here to watch. Oh, let's see here. We briefly touched Ripple. Briefly, like 2 seconds. Omise Go was pretty strong here as of late. A little bit of a bull flag coming in on Omise Go, looking pretty good actually. So versus BTC, if it can turn this trend here, it's holding this moving average. Volume has been pretty positive all around. Nice little rally off the lows. You can see where it paused. Basically, this resistance point here, a little bit of bull flag, maybe setting up a secondary entry for another run higher versus BTC. So this is actually very positive. It needs to break above that blue line. More specifically, the yellow line's the early entry. ENG, we covered that in the last one. Encash, I think, yeah, I covered Encash. Not here, but I mean the last one. Enigma, ENG. Quick cycle through the charts. Very nice, pretty good. Big volume reversal at the top, but pretty good all around. Not bad. Not bad, not bad. All right. And one more, Quantum. Couple of things. Quantum here had that big run. They were added to Binance from a USD pairing and a BNB pairing. They've had Quantum as a BTC pair for quite some time. And this one had a very big move off the lows. Put in a little bit of a double top. You can see that here on this chart on the 1 hours, right, in the near term. Lower second high. Finally broke below this support line here, kind of heading lower. But it's not too bad. I mean, in the big picture, if you look at the 4-hour chart, maybe setting up a secondary entry point. I'd wait for this thing to bottom out first. Looks like it, you know, let it wait to see where it finds that low. But it looks pretty good, and I think it's really turned the corner on this daily chart. But we'll see if it was just news driven, then that's it. That's going to be the quick pop, and it'll fade it out. But if it's going to be a little bit more sustainable, that moving average is going to have to hold, and then we're going to start heading higher from there. All right, so that's going to do it for today, guys. Let me go back to the BTC chart one more time. How's it looking? We are basically around that $8,900 mark. As I mentioned at the start of the stream, if you missed it, the big volume reversal keeps me cautious, keeps me nervous when I see this action like this, right, where it reversed near the top, and then it was followed through by some pretty decent sell action. Right now, it's just bouncing into that moving average, and so I am much more cautious here. I think the tone has changed in the near term. Intermediate term, I'm still bullish on this low. So going forward here in the next day or so, we're going to see if two things, right? If we can get back above 9,100 or so, a little bit higher with some good volume, then that will negate this. On the other side, 8,600 is the first stop in and around there. Below that, there's a couple levels to watch, 84, 83. And ultimately, I mean, we want to make a much higher low than this second low here. So 83, 84, maybe 8K is kind of the levels that I'm going to be watching for. That's going to be it. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thank you guys for smashing that like button. Catch you next time. Take care, everyone.